Hello, my friends. Welcome back to English Unleashed. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about one day in my life. But as always, while I tell you this story, I will also help you learn English in a natural way. So, you will hear many useful expressions, and I will explain them inside the story. That means you can enjoy listening, follow the meaning, and learn the expressions at the same time. Let's begin. Most mornings, I wake up before my alarm goes off. When your alarm goes off, it starts making noise to wake you up. I don't always jump out of bed immediately. To jump out of bed means to get up very quickly and full of energy. Honestly, that is not usually me. I often lie there for a few extra minutes. I stare at the ceiling and try to gather my thoughts. When you gather your thoughts, you calmly organize what you are thinking and feeling. On this particular morning, I woke up at 6:15. The room was quiet, and there was that soft light that comes in just before sunrise. I could hear a bird outside. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. But then my mind started to race. When your mind races, your thoughts move very fast, often because you are worried or thinking about too many things at the same time. I suddenly remembered all the things I had to do that day. I felt that familiar pressure building in my chest. I had a lot on my plate. If you have a lot on your plate, you have many things to do or deal with. I needed to answer emails, finish some writing, record part of a lesson, and take care of a few personal things I had been putting off. To put something off means to delay it and not do it yet, often because you do not feel like doing it. For a second, I wanted to stay in bed and hide from the day. But then I told myself, come on, Tom, get it together. To get it together means to calm down, become organized, and start acting in a more controlled way. So I sat up slowly. I rubbed my eyes and I put my feet on the floor. The floor was cold, and that helped me wake up a little more. I walked to the kitchen and put the kettle on. To put the kettle on means to start heating water, usually for tea or coffee. That small action always makes me feel that the day has officially begun. While I waited for the water to boil, I looked out of the window. The street was still quiet. A few lights were on in nearby houses, and the world felt like it was just beginning to stretch and breathe. I made myself a cup of coffee and stood by the window with both hands around the mug. I always enjoy that first sip. It helps me ease into the day. To ease into something means to begin it slowly and gently, not too suddenly. I have learned that I do better when I do not rush the first part of my morning. If I start the day in a hurry, everything feels slightly out of control. Still, even with coffee in my hand, I could feel stress creeping in. If something creeps in, it enters slowly and quietly, little by little. That is how stress often works. It does not always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it enters like a whisper. So I decided not to look at my phone right away. I know myself well. If I check messages too early, I can easily go down a rabbit hole. To go down a rabbit hole means to get pulled deeply into something, especially in a way that takes a lot of time and attention. One message turns into three, then into 10, and before I know it, my calm morning has disappeared. Instead, I sat down with my notebook and wrote a short list of what I needed to do. I do this because it helps me clear my mind. When you clear your mind, you remove confusion. You feel better. You feel calmer. I wrote only 5 things. Years ago, I used to make impossible lists with 15 or 20 tasks. Then I would feel disappointed when I could not finish everything. Now I try to be more realistic. I try to set myself up for success. To set yourself up for success means to create conditions that make success more likely. So I try to set myself up for success. My list looked simple, but I knew the day would still be full. Life often looks simple on paper and much messier in reality. After coffee, I got dressed and went outside for a short walk. As I walked, I passed a small bakery near the corner. I thought maybe I deserve a little treat. To treat yourself means to give yourself something enjoyable, like a reward. I smiled, but I kept walking. I told myself I would come back another day. When I got back home, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. This is usually the moment when the day truly begins. It is also the moment when excuses start to appear. Suddenly, I feel like cleaning the room, checking old messages, making another coffee, or doing anything except the task in front of me. Sometimes I laugh at myself because it is so obvious. My brain is trying to stall. To stall means to delay doing something, usually because you do not want to begin. The first thing on my list was answering emails. I do not hate emails, but they can drain my energy if I let them take over the morning. To drain your energy means to make you feel really tired, really exhausted. Some emails are easy. You read them, you answer them, and move on. But others are more complicated. They are more complex. You have to think carefully. You have to choose the right tone and sometimes read between the lines. To read between the lines means to understand an extra meaning that is not said directly. So you have to fully understand the message. By then, it was almost 9:30 and I was supposed to start writing. Writing is strange. Some days, the words come naturally and everything flows. Other days, every sentence feels heavy, and I have to drag the words out of myself. To drag something out means to pull it out slowly with effort. That morning was somewhere in the middle. I was not exactly inspired, but I was not completely stuck either. I stared at the screen. I wrote one sentence. I deleted half of it. I wrote another. Then I leaned back in my chair and sighed. I reminded myself not to aim for perfection. Perfection can slow everything down. Sometimes you just need to get the ideas out first and improve them later. In other words, I needed to stop overthinking and just get on with it. To get on with something means to stop delaying and continue doing what needs to be done. So I did. And little by little, the words began to come. As the morning went on, I slowly started to get into the flow. To get into the flow means to begin working smoothly and naturally, without too much struggle. At first, my thoughts felt scattered, but now they were beginning to settle. One sentence led to another and another, and soon I was no longer fighting the work. I was simply doing it. That is often how my best work happens. It does not begin with a perfect idea or a sudden flash of inspiration. It begins with resistance, then patience, and then, if I stay with it long enough, something finally clicks. When something clicks, it suddenly starts to make sense or work properly. My phone buzzed on the desk. I looked at it and saw a message from someone close to me. A small problem had come up, but it was the kind of small problem that can affect the mood of the whole day. I made another coffee, this time a little stronger, and I stood in the kitchen again. I have noticed that I often think better when I'm standing by the counter with my mug in my hand. Maybe it is because those moments feel ordinary, and ordinary moments can help you calm down. They help you come back to yourself. I told myself, all right, Tom, don't let this derail your day. To derail something means to cause it to go off its planned path, like a train leaving the track. It was a useful reminder. The problem was real, yes, but it did not need to take control of everything. So I replied carefully. I tried to be helpful and then decided to leave it there for a moment. Sometimes that is all you can do. You do what you can and then you wait. You do not keep picking at the problem. To pick at something means to keep touching or returning to it in a way that stops it from healing or settling. People do this with thoughts too. We return to them again and again. By lunchtime, I was feeling mentally tired, so I stepped away from my desk. To step away means to leave something for a short time. After lunch, I had planned to record part of a lesson. Usually, before I record, I need a few minutes to warm up my voice and my mind. I read a few lines aloud. I changed a few phrases and tried to make the language sound more natural. I care a lot about that. I never want my words to sound stiff or unnatural. I want them to sound like real life, like something a real person would actually say in a real situation. But this time, I kept stopping and starting. I would say one sentence, then stop. Then I would say it again in a different way. Then again. I was being too hard on myself. I could feel it. I was starting to second guess everything. To second guess means to doubt a decision or to question whether you are doing the right thing. Should I say it this way? Is that word too hard? Does this sound clear enough? Is the tone warm enough? Should I start again? When you second guess too much, you lose your natural rhythm. You stop trusting yourself. So eventually, I pushed my chair back. I stood up and laughed a little. I said, "Well, you're overcomplicating this." To overcomplicate means to make it more difficult or more detailed than it needs to be. That small laugh helped. Later that night, I stood by the window one more time. The street was darker now, and most of the lights in the nearby houses had been turned off. It had not been a perfect day, but still I had shown up. To show up means to be present, to do what needs to be done, and to keep going even when you do not feel amazing. And honestly, that is often enough. Not brilliance, not perfection, just presence, just effort, just showing up. Not getting everything right, just not giving up on it.